Gotta make sure everything's working. Testing 1 2. Looks like we're good. Hello, hello. Can anyone hear me out there? Alright. I think we're good. So, interesting situation. Number of things going on, number of factors running into why I didn't make a video yesterday. So, trying to make up for it now. And then also, got this interesting little clipper system that's coming in. It's going to drop some pretty heavy snow over Buffalo, Rochester, pretty much most of interior New York here. Even so, we also may have the coastal parts of New England here getting into the action as well. So, it's going to be pretty busy here over the next little bit. Cover that and also talk about what's ahead here, because we're already starting to experience the big change in the weather here. But we've mainly been talking about what's been going on out towards the east. Do need to talk a little bit about what could be happening out towards the west. Hey, what's up, Emmanuel? Yeah, it's gonna be pretty busy. Things are gonna be pretty busy here. There was also severe weather to talk about as well. Indy snow. I think it's possible, but you may get a little break in the action. There may be a couple instances where it might run a little bit close to that area, but so right now, kind of leaning away from it, if anything. I'm going to have a pretty nice ridge over the eastern half of the U.S. here, so that snow line is really going to retreat more to the north. Dang. Trying to burp and I can't even do it. Yeah, right now, seems like everything's kind of retreating to the north. If anything, off to the south, not too close to you, but a little further off to the south, maybe over towards Tennessee and areas further south. Maybe severe weather could be a factor as well. Do have a slight risk on Thursday. I wanted to say tomorrow. There is a marginal risk tomorrow, but there is a slight risk on Thursday. I'm keeping an eye on as well. We'll be talking about that in a little bit here. Still trying to set stuff up for this stream. I had to let my computer cool off. I was making this thumbnail. It took like 2 hours to make, and I still don't feel like it came out great. So, yeah. I wanted to just do a regular video, but when I realized that new models were coming in, I think this was going to be the better move in this case. Besides, I was still probably going to cover this a little bit, at least a little bit of this winter storm anyway. We'll have cameras up there for that too. But yeah, I'm just pulling up model data at the moment here. Just give me a second here. So I'm going to do this no, I think I'm actually going to stick with what I had. I'm going to use pivotal weather. I am going to have to make a payment on that, but I can't do it today. So there's going to be like that little embarrassing I need to make a payment screen popping up here, but got one other bill I need to make sure I take care of first. So there's that. Yeah, that's pretty much what's going on in life right now. In any case, though, I didn't even share this stream to anyone yet, which is crazy. I'm not on my game. Part of what happened is because of the fact that I've been having to go to the laundromat to dry my clothes, so it's kind of throwing a wrench in my schedule here. So I've been kind of jumping all over the place. So just bear with me for just a moment here. We'll be good to go. Okay. Alright, I think we're good. Also, if you haven't already, folks, definitely make sure you're hitting that like button too. That helps a bunch. Okay. Stream is shared now. Oh, gotta share it on Discord. And then we're good to go. All right. All right, there we go. We're all set now. So I'm trying to figure out how I want to do this. Do I want to use the... do I just want to go full screen with this while I try to set up cameras? Or do I want to go to the model data? I'm trying to figure this one out because I didn't plan this one like I normally would. So, forgive me for being a little bit disorganized on this one. Apologize, folks. Trying to get some cameras set up also over towards Rochester, because it looks like there's about to be some pretty heavy snow that goes through that area as well. Nice little snow bands kind of set up right on that border right now, but we're going to see this move in pretty quick, especially once it crosses the lake. Here's Erie, and this is Toronto right here. Okay, we got that going. Now I just need that map to pop up here. We should be good. And you know what, screw it. I'm gonna pull up the weather models first. Just so we can make some progress. Alright. Appreciate you guys being patient though for right now. Alright, we got that, and then let's go ahead and pull this up right here, and we're good. So if you're looking for any updates on what's going on in your area, if you happen to be in the Northeast, you just look at the bottom left corner of the screen. We'll go ahead and quickly go over this, and then we're going to do a little bit of coverage there and see how things go from that point. Might stay on for an hour, could be a little longer, depends on how things progress with the stream. Alright, so that being said, let's go ahead and get into things here. Interesting setup coming into play now. This is going to be a very big troublemaker for the lower 48 here, especially over towards the northern states. Also, we have this clipper system, as we mentioned before, over towards the northwest. Do a quick model comparison with this in a minute here. But basically right now, what we have going on is this upper level low kicks in. Depending on how much cold air comes in along with this, we could see some snow over towards the eastern half of the Rockies. May even sneak its way into the Oklahoma and Texas panhandles here. For all is said and done, we'll see this eventually head off to the north and east here. We may get a little bit of wraparound snow on the backside, but it does look like this low begins to weaken by the time it gets over to the northeast. There's going to be a couple chances of snow up towards the interior northeast, but over towards the coast, I think we're mostly going to be dealing with rain. If we do get snow, it'll be early on, and then we're eventually going to transition to heavy rain. As we go further along, we'll see that the storm track really starts to head more up towards the north. As it stands right now, a lot of the warmer air is going to stay off to the deep south here. So if we're looking for winter weather, it's going to be towards the far northern states, places where we would usually expect it. And that's going to continually be a trend throughout a good chunk of the first half of February here. As we go further along here, though, there are some signs, even though we're more than 10 days out by this point, where we'll be keeping an eye on maybe the potential for a little cold snap. Do I think it'll be as long lasting as what we've had previously? I would say no. If anything, I think the chances of that occurring would be more so towards the back half of the month right now. But the very beginning of the month, very classic negative P&A look, cold out to the west, a lot of troughing occurring, as you can see here at the end of this model run. This is the 13th of February that we're talking about. And then a lot of ridging out to the east, which will be warm air. So this does actually kind of have that look like, depending on other dynamics here, we could be dealing with increased chances of severe weather as we go throughout February here. But definitely has that look of a very dynamic month. Now, obviously the latest Euro only goes up to 144 hours. So we'll probably look at that and then kind of backtrack towards the lunchtime model, which has more range on it. But as you can see here, pretty similar deal. But the interesting thing to make note of here, it does look like this upper level core holds up just a tiny bit better on the Euro than it does versus the GFS. Even then, I think the outcome is going to be relatively similar to what we've been seeing here. Probably going to expect to see maybe some early snow over towards the interior northeast, maybe towards the coast as well. But I do think the coast will end out as rain, even if we do end up getting snow early on. A little bit of snow is possible on the backside of that system. That's where most of the action I would expect. This is where I would expect most of the action to come from at this point. Again, pretty much the same thing. Storm track kind of hangs out towards the north here. And that's going to be the trend really as we go throughout the entire month here. Of course, this is going to be us looking at the 12Z run. And it's going to be pretty much a similar deal. We're going to go past the 150 hour mark here. And again, pretty congruent to the GFS. It's really towards the back half of this model run where we have questions where we pretty much enter no man's land here. Interesting little feature right here with this trough as we get towards the 10th and beyond here. But at the end of the day, the run looks very consistent to what we had previously on the GFS. So definitely interested to see how this plays out. Like I said, this does look like a pattern that would be potentially a little bit more favorable to severe weather. There's, of course, other factors that go into this, more than just looking at the upper level jet here. But this does have a look that, at the very least, intrigues me. Depending on how this trough pans out, could be a big determining factor to that. So let's go 18Z again. We'll just jump back to GFS and we'll kind of just ride out with that one for the rest of the way. Because it doesn't really look like the two model runs are all that dissimilar in this case here. So it makes our lives a little bit easier. So big factor that we're going to be keeping an eye on is, of course, temperatures. And I only have good news to talk about there, at least in the short term and in the medium term as well. We're looking a little bit more like ourselves. Definitely enjoying the lack of teens over here towards my area. A little further up towards the north, I'm sure you're liking the fact that you're not dealing with below zero temperatures. And it's going to be a pretty steady trend from that point. Point of interest to keep an eye on in regards to severe weather, wherever we see these little warm noses pop up here and you watch these kind of trek off to these are usually going to have a frontal boundary flanking it on the back end here. So we'll see a brief cool down whenever those fronts pass through, but for the most part there's not a whole lot of cold air behind it, which also would be, to a point, a bit of a limiting factor with severe weather too. So you do see a couple little small cold pushes, but they don't really last on this. So again, not really concerned about that in this case. In fact, look at this warming trend that we get into once we get past the 10-day mark. There's some really impressive temperatures over here, especially over towards Florida, where we're starting to sneak into the 80s. South Texas actually gets into the 80s here to go along with it. Go along with this as we go further into this run here. See an increasingly impressive warm sector here, which kind of helps maybe reinforce my thoughts on maybe an increase of severe weather towards the middle part of the month. Like I said, again, other factors kind of come into play with that, but definitely increasing my suspicion, so to speak. But also look at the dew points to go along with that, which will help heighten my suspicion as well. As you can see, Moisture is going to be out ahead of some of those frontal boundaries that we were talking about just a second ago. And we're going to continue to see Gulf of Mexico moisture start to pump its way back into the deep south here, especially as we get towards the first week in the middle part of February. That's where my interest really starts to peak. You can kind of see at the end of this run here, right where that trough starts to come into play here, out towards the deep south again. Look what we got. Nice little moist sector pops up. And if you were seeing the map earlier, we already had temperatures over towards this area in the 70s. Those dew points in the 60s. Definitely kind of driving home the thought that there might be something to watch down the line here in regards to severe weather. So this thing we'll look at here is we will look at the precipitation type here. So obviously, as we mentioned, it's our Clipper system. Some remnant lake effect snow to come in behind that. Another storm system to follow right around the end of the month. This is where our severe weather threat kind of ramps up ever so slightly. Then from that point, like I said, on the back side of this, we see some snow. It's a deformation zone that pops up here. Could see a little bit of ice. We're starting to see that cold air kind of linger a little bit further based off of this pressure map here. Looks like the 32-degree line just barely hangs around in the northeast, so you could actually end out of snow over towards the northeast. Trends have been kind of pushing against that. It's the first time I've really seen this model run here. But the other thing to pay attention to is as we go forward, you have another Clipper system that comes in behind that. Not expecting major totals over here. But also, one thing that I talked about in the thumbnail here, debatable. Depends on what you mean by debatable. Are you talking about the snow out towards your area, severe weather? There's so many things that are debatable about these forecast runs right now. So much up in the air. You can easily change at the drop of a dime. Because all I see in your area is rain right now. That 540 line drops though, or if that low deepens, then you're in business. The cold, you like the cold. Yeah. I mean, I kind of like the cold too. What we just dealt with, I wasn't as much of a fan of. But for the most part, I'm okay with the cold. I just thought about something now too as I'm looking at the Radar Omega screen on the bottom left. This temperature is in Celsius, by the way. That's 3 degrees Celsius that we're showing on the camera here. So that temperature is actually above freezing over here. And this is just to the west of Buffalo, just off the lake. So that's interesting. So it looks like a little bit of lake effect is coming into play along with this. So that's going to help amplify those totals, which we'll get into in just a moment. But as we continue to go further along here, go to about 100 hours. That's our next storm. Notice the increase in action also out towards the northwest. It's going to be something that we'll have to keep an eye on as we go forward too, especially over towards the Sierras. The Sierras have been very dry this winter, so this is a sight for sore eyes, so to speak. But as we go further along though, seeing all that rain and snow, I do have some concerns with flooding, especially with such a consistent trend that we're seeing here, especially as we go further down range. Because as I mentioned in the February outlook I dropped about a week or so ago, I expect the northwest in particular to get increasingly active. But seeing this all at once over here towards the Sierras here, from honestly what I would almost go as far as to say a weak little atmospheric river, could cause a little bit of trouble here. But it will also allow us to catch up. Also, with all the troughing that we have out towards the west, some of this snow may even make it just outside the LA foothills before all said and done here too. So quite the parallel if you think about it. We're talking about record-breaking wildfires here one minute, and then just off the mountains here we're starting to see snow the next minute. Also, we've seen record-setting rain here to go along with it. So crazy times indeed. But do have some fleeting suspicions as we get towards the middle part of the month. Keep an eye out in the next few days for the upcoming outlook for February here. We did the first outlook not long ago. We're going to, of course, be doing a follow-up at the very end of the month. That being said, let's keep the ball rolling here, and we're going to take a look at our snowfall totals in the short range and then also long range. We'll start out from I'd say a week out. We'll go ahead and change our parameter here. So this is what we have going on right now in regards to snowfall totals over the course of the next week. Now, keep in mind, not all models are equal. Actually, I think I'm going to change models here too. I'm actually going to go with a blend of models so we can see some realistic totals too, because some of these are crazy. So, all right. Big time focus over towards the Great Lakes, especially over towards Lake Erie, Lake Toronto, where we could see some bullseyes from lake effect snow. Some aggressive numbers here, possibly too, over the course of the next week. About a foot of snow could be possible here. Definitely will be making up for lost time for these areas. The fact that this is one of the more conservative models picking up on that definitely is an intriguing signal, to say the least. Over towards the interior parts of the state, away from the lakes, we're starting to see a decrease in those totals, but especially over towards New York City. But we're starting to see a little bit of an increase as we go further out towards the coast here. So eventually New England does look like they're going to get some action. It's going to come in small doses, though. It's not going to be all at once. If you want the beefiest snow activity, you're going to be mainly, again, looking towards the lakes at this point. Now, the real point of interest is, of course, over towards the northwest here, especially over towards the mountains, where we're starting to get bullseye totals of about 3 feet of snow, if not more. And this is just off the 1 week look. If we go towards the 10-day look at this. We're starting to get into 4, 5, 6, even 7 feet for some of these areas here. By the time we get towards 10 days out. And look at the Sierras especially. Sierras especially are getting up towards about 4 to 5 feet. Again, this area is very crucial when it comes to precipitation here. This is a big source for the water for the state of California. So considering how dry it's been over towards a lot of these areas in recent time, this is a welcome sight. Just, we don't want it all too much at once, because sometimes too much of something can be a bad thing. We'll also see the Rockies getting into the action pretty sufficiently at this point. You could see some areas reaching 1 to 2 feet there as well. So big time mountain snow setup that we're going to be dealing with as we go further along. Then as we get towards the 384-hour mark, we're going to go back to GFS. Now these are early totals that we're looking at here. This is not something I'm going to say is law at this point, but look at the totals that we end up getting here. Easy 6, 7 plus feet here. So we go over towards the northeast. We're looking at over towards the lakes. We could easily see about 2 feet of snow from the looks of it. I don't think 2 feet is the right amount, but we'll see what happens with that. Then as we go further towards the Rockies here, we could see 2 to 3 feet of snow. Not preposterous, but a little bit aggressive if you ask me. We'll have to see if that pans out or not. 3 to 4 feet possible over towards Idaho in particular. Over towards the northwestern mountains here, we could easily get up to about 4, 5, maybe even 6 feet on some areas here, especially towards the mountain tops. But that's pretty much it in regards to that is concerned. Now, if we were to go ahead and get into severe weather, we have a slight risk on the 30th, which is on a Thursday. And since my last video, because this was a little bit further off towards the east, we're starting to look more so towards Louisiana now as a point of interest. Do think this is a day where all hazards could be possible, but I do think parameters are mainly going to be limited due to lower lapse rates over towards this region here. Over towards Alexandria, Louisiana, though, just to the east of Houston is going to be the point of interest here. Yep, and this hasn't really changed since the last time I looked at it. But yeah, the mid-level lapse rates are going to be lackluster, as you see here, and it's going to be fairly confined area of elevated instability, so this is going to keep things kind of at bay here at this point. Hold on a second here. I'm gonna have to mute this real quick so that way I don't get my copyright taken down. People outside are watching TV. I'm gonna turn on some music. Sorry about that, y'all. By the way, congratulations on the rain and snow, Makabit. I know you've been waiting forever. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Yeah, in regards to our severe weather threat on Thursday, I'm not expecting a whole lot out of it. I really think that this threat's going to stay relatively confined. We're going to take a look at those mid-level lapse rates in just a minute. But even so, we'll get a little bit of action mainly towards eastern Texas, eventually working its way further out towards central and eastern parts of Louisiana. A tornado or two again is possible, but I expect the threat to be pretty limited overall. Yeah, that sounds about right. But it looks like the weather pattern out towards the west is going to start to ramp up just a bit. A lot of it's mainly going to be towards the northwest, but I did see a couple model runs where you might have a shot at a little bit more rain, a little bit more wet snow. But obviously, it's a little bit further out in the range, so I would say don't get your hopes up too high just yet, but it's possible. Alright. Also take a quick look at our marginal risk. This is the area that I previously highlighted in the last video. Threat is kind of downtrended, mainly for the same reasons why that slight risk isn't being hyped up too much. Lackluster lapse rates are a big problem, usually when it comes to severe weather. You want them to be at about, maybe I'd say a 6 or 7. I don't know if I'm in range yet to look at the convective models in regards to that. But if I were a betting man, and this is just now starting to load, so that's kind of bad luck. Okay, so let's see if we can get this to pop up here. Gonna be like right on the edge of the range. When you have lapse rates like this, where you're getting into the 7 to 9 range, those are usually ideal. When you go further into the blues and the yellows here, it's sufficient, but not quite that impressive. And by the time we get towards Wednesday, I mean, we have some 6s, we have some 7s, but it looks like everything's gonna fire off to the east of it, from the looks of it. We get some good lapse rates early over the area, but by the time we get towards peak time where storms would develop, lapse rates kind of drop off. So we're losing like that peak, we're losing those ideal levels that you would need for peak severe weather potential. That is a little loud. I'm going to turn it down just a tiny bit. Hopefully that's a little better. When the roommates start playing music without really thinking about it, I mean, I told them I was streaming. You know, it could turn into a bit of an issue for me. Don't want to get copyright because of that. Anyway, though. Yeah, the storm track, once you clear the west, actually takes a major jog up to the north. And then we also have clipper systems that are coming into Canada along with it. So that's why the northeast is going to be such an area, such a big area focused in the long run. So another limiting factor, it looks like, with the severe weather setup going Wednesday into Thursday is going to be lack of instability at the mid-levels. Towards the surface is going to be a key factor as well, but based off what I was seeing there, I'm not expecting an abundant amount. Yeah, we're barely, depending on the area, we're barely cracking 1,000. So that's going to be another limiting factor. It's mainly all going to be kinematic profile, so depending on how this trends, which, if I'm being honest, I'm not too optimistic about, probably not going to do too much in the way of coverage on a Thursday here. Definitely not for Wednesday, but we'll be on standby just in case. Okay, so we'll go ahead now, and I guess we'll start covering this little bit of action that we have going on here at the moment. Gonna take one last, I think there's one other parameter I was thinking of taking a look at, but after seeing the cape here, I think that kind of says it all at this point. We'll look at one other thing. Well, actually a couple other things before we switch over. Okay, so let's go for days 4 through 8. I'm not expecting a whole lot from this, but like I said, I'm a little leery once you get past the day 10 mark here. And another interesting factor that I'm keeping in mind here, it's really got more to do with the 8 to 14 day range here. Like I said, this kind of has that look of maybe a little setup where we could have severe weather again. We're going to see a lot of troughing out here towards the west, especially as we get to that 8 to 14 day range. Although right now, don't think the CPC's really picked up on it just yet. But notice a couple things there with this. With the precipitation map, the bullseye, definitely again over towards the Ozarks here, the Mississippi River Valley, maybe heading to the deep south as well. So again, a lot of them going to be keeping track of over the coming days. All right, let's go. Now we've covered all that, let's go ahead and get down to business here. since we already got the music on, there's no real need to worry about anything right now. Let's go ahead and get this off of here. I'll probably hang out here for, I guess, an hour at the very least. Okay, I don't know why I can't pull this off the screen. There we go. Okay. Just give me 1 second here while I pull up the map. Or while I pull up cameras over here towards New York. Looks like a lot of the snow is missing this little area over here just to the west of Buffalo. It's like a little snow hole that's kind of popped up. And it really looks like Rochester's going to be the point of interest. Considering the fact that we aren't going to be looking at a widespread winter storm on this one, I could probably go ahead and pull up the single radar sites here. Get a little bit better info. Look at that snow hole. So Buffalo is getting absolutely nothing right now. But yeah, all the heavy snow, even lake effect snow mixed in here, is all over towards Rochester right now. Yeah, that's what happened to my area the last time. We didn't get anything over towards my area, but about 10 miles off to the south, we had areas that got like a whole inch of snow, roads iced over, and for all that it was worth, I couldn't even go to work. I think that's what I was most bummed out about, was the fact that I had nothing to show for it in my area, but no snow. But yeah, couldn't go to work. All we had on the ground was rock salt. I wonder if there's any way I can widen these screens out a bit. Nope. Well, we'll talk about frustrating. Doesn't look like we can widen out these screens on the New York cameras here. We got a good camera over towards Buffalo too. That's the crazy part. I'm gonna try to see if I can find another site. But yeah, I had a rough go of it with that last wintry system. All we had on the ground was rock salt over here, but over about a good 15-20 miles to the east, they got slammed. Didn't see it coming either. I kind of didn't see it coming until like the last maybe hour or so before. I was like, oh yeah, they're about to get it. They're about to get it. Because I was just looking at some weather models at the time. I was actually streaming here with you guys, and that's when it happened. Then I got a call from one of my coworkers. I had my forecast off probably about really 10 miles. I was thinking it was going to happen just a hair further to the south here. You gotta love it. So close, but still so far. Yeah, that storm kind of had me mad. I'm not gonna lie. And normally I don't get mad, but I was just pissed. Just taking money out my check. Yeah, it looks like I'm gonna have to finesse this camera here. This is really all I got to work with at this point. Alright. Just bear with me for a second, folks. You're gonna see some weird stuff going on the screen for just a moment. Give me a second. That screen is not going to stay that small. There we go. This is just outside of Rochester, and look at the snow that is on the ground here to go with this. It's pretty impressive what we're seeing over there right now. Donner Pass. I'm not as up here. I'm not very familiar. These last couple events that have been over towards the deep south, I'm familiar. But out there, I have no idea what's going on. But this is I-90 interchange. This is looking westbound at exit 45 towards the D ramp. Perhaps you do know that area, but I do not. I have never been that far north. Furthest north I have gone is Ohio. My guess is if I were to go on the map here, I'm guessing we're on the south side of Rochester here. Maybe over towards like Henrietta. Yeah, the conditions are pretty nasty out there right now. That's all I do know. Okay. Never take the chains out of your trunk. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense, actually. Alright, so here's a look at our advisories, by the way. As we go further along, as we go further towards the mountains, we have winter storm warnings in effect as well. So we have Watertown in effect there. We also have Syracuse, I think, is just inside the winter weather advisories here in the lighter shade of purple. But anywhere to the north of, let's say, Clay, New York, heading towards Oneida and Utica, that's where we start seeing those winter storm warnings come into effect. This is over towards more mountainous territory, though. Right now, the snow hasn't quite made it there just yet, though. My phone here. Just give me a second, folks. Give me a second, folks. Oops. I need to click that. Cut that off. There we go. Sorry about that. So, Utica. Oh, so it is Utica. It is Utica. Okay. Originally, I thought that, but you can never tell these days. Some people say it's Utica. Some people say it's Utica. So, just going with what I heard first. But yeah, I'll pronounce it as Utica. Well, that's interesting. We see a little bit of rain mixing over towards Jamestown. Oh, lost the camera for a second. Get that back. There we go. Well, hey, I don't mind being corrected as long as I'm getting it right afterwards. I'd rather have it right. I don't want to get into a contest also of people naming, people pronouncing towns like Buffalo being pronounced differently. I'm like, okay. Because that's actually happened on here before once. I had a moderator on here previously that had done that. Turned out to be a bad thing. As I came to find out, so he's not here anymore. Well, there was that and other problems, but yeah. It was a sign of things to come. If the stream buffers every once in a while, let me know. Because I'm seeing a little bit of a drop in the frames here and there, so I'm going to be keeping an eye out. Jesus. Gravity blast. Metal lingo. Another spot we need to check over towards is Michigan, of course. Alright, Makabet. Appreciate you tuning in. See you in the next one, hopefully. Alright, so let's see if we can't get a camera over towards maybe Toronto here. I know we got that little dry slot here. Oh wait, no, we're gonna see an increase in action there in just a moment, or so it seems. So I'll just pull that camera back up, see what we get. The gusts are actually pretty strong with this as well. Another thing to make note of here. Yeah, we're dropping frames on and off. I don't know what's going on with my computer tonight. We had to reset the router earlier, and it just doesn't seem like it's recovered ever since. See if that might help. Let's see over towards Grand Rapids here. Maybe there's a little action here. I think it's already moved through though at this point. Nope. It's all gone. Actually, we got rain over here. That's surprising. We may not see a whole lot over here towards Dunnville. Because the reality is, look at the dew point here. Even though that isn't in Fahrenheit, that's Celsius, so that, I would say that's about maybe, well, it should still be enough moisture in the air, actually. It's still gonna, well, it's still dry, obviously. It's still sufficient enough to have some moisture needed to do what we need it to do to get some snow here. Okay, there's some flurries starting to come in now, actually. Right on schedule. Just as I'm starting to talk against it. Yeah, Rochester's going to get slammed. Rochester's getting slammed, though, and it's going to continue to be that way as we go throughout the evening here. Anyone that's tuning in for the first time this evening, though, Had a little discussion earlier about what to expect the upcoming weather pattern here. We'll be doing a follow-up video tomorrow with that too. Or we might talk about the severe weather threat depending on whether or not it uptrends here. Which I'm honestly thinking it's not. But also there's going to be some big time changes over the lower 48 here. Regards to the temperatures, regards to winter weather, of course severe weather chances as well. So brace yourselves. February is going to be one of those dynamic months for sure. Kind of like how December was in a way. If not even more dynamic. Oh, brother. Yeah, you guys are getting into the thick of it. In fact, you're going to start to see a little bit more in the way of winter weather over towards your region in the future. I wouldn't necessarily say that you've had a dry spell, but I think you guys have been a little bit below average over there, especially towards the northern parts of the state. Wonder what's going on over towards DC right now, in Maryland. Increased power outages over there and over towards New Jersey as well. Yeah, it's gonna be a big shift for you guys because now you're gonna get into the action a good bit. Like when I was looking at the GFS a little earlier, you guys were kind of in a little bit of a bullseye there. Potentially over the course of the next couple of weeks, you could easily see maybe up to a foot, if not more. Doesn't completely make up for what you haven't gotten this year, but it's a pretty good start. Problem is the potential of getting a lot of that in one sitting. But I think it's going to kind of be one of those deals where it's a little bit more like a slow burn. I haven't seen anything that looks necessarily like a super robust snowstorm right now for the area, but over time you'll get some. I can relate. That last winter storm, I got stiffed. I got nothing. But the craziest part is, about 10-15 miles off to my south and east, they got quick little inch of snow and a quarter-inch of ice. And as a result, I couldn't go to work. So basically, the only thing I got to look at that day was nothing but rock salt. And a lot of rock salt at that. So, yeah. It's a bummer. I know how you feel. Yeah, I was kind of, I ain't gonna lie, I normally don't get mad with the outcomes from my area when it comes to weather, but that was one where that one was an exception. I was kind of mad. I can't lie. I was mad. It's just like, come on, man. It's like over towards my job, they got snow. I had coworkers that barely made it home, and meanwhile, I'm just sitting here looking at rock salt. Somebody had dumped some rock salt well out in advance of the event, thinking that we were going to get snow. Truthfully, I didn't think we were going to get much anything, but yeah. Oh, please, yes. Absolutely, I need that. I absolutely would love that. That would make a world of difference. Not necessarily that I've hated the jobs I've had in recent time, but working from home would make life a little bit easier. Especially since we only have one working vehicle at the moment. So I live with others right now, and well, yeah, we're down to one. Both the other two cars went down all at once, so yeah, definitely would appreciate that help. This is my first time hearing this song. Oh yeah, that snow's starting to come down a bit more over towards Dunville and Welland now. So Buffalo's starting to get into the action with this little quick snow band. This is going to end as fast as it can begin. Because this isn't a very wide snow band. But if you happen to be under these lake effect snow bands, boy, those totals, I tell you. Appreciate it. I'll probably be either sending them an application tonight or in the morning. Well, I know you said you had to go, so I'm not going to try and hold you up. You have a good night if you do have to get out of here. This song is really good. I gotta find out what this one is. Oh, it won't tell me. Compilation's too long. I'll message you on Discord. Hopefully I get a response. Yeah, I'll let you know tomorrow, though. Especially if I get on, especially if I can apply to it pretty easily. Oof, jaw hurts today. Oh, did not want to do that. There we go. Quick little fix. Alright, guys. 20 more minutes. We'll be on here for probably another 20 minutes. I'm probably going to chill out and call it a night myself. Have another potentially long day ahead. I think the grand totals might be a little bit higher over towards the west a bit now. Let me check this area over here. Well, we are seeing a little bit of action. I'm trying to see if I can find an extra view over towards I-81 before we go. Might be a little tougher to get there. Wait, hang on. I think I found something. These are all night vision cameras. Utica, there we go. Alright, here's Utica. Alright, we're gonna pull that up on screen right now. One second and I'll get that adjusted for you guys. Alright, there we go. Got a nice little secondary visual over the last little bit here. About to say I lost one of my computer screens for a moment here. Might have it back now. Perhaps not. Okay, there we go. I don't know what the heck happened there. There we go. think we have blizzard warnings out towards the west right now. I was just curious. Could be all the way out towards Alaska. Actually, it is. Yep, it's over towards Anchorage. Let's check out Albany real quick. Deathcore for you, I guess. Thought I had that moving. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out which radar site I want to go with. Yep, there's about to be a break over towards Dunville and Welland, and then soon that's going to also be a break for Buffalo here. So interesting how, depending on the radar angle, the radar perspective, it changes the amount of precipitation that we see on here. This looks like a considerably larger snow band than what it is compared to this radar site here. I find it fascinating to see that. But obviously being further away, you see everything that's going on higher towards the atmosphere. The closer you are, you can start to see towards the lower levels of the atmosphere. The part that affects us the most, basically. Probably got another 7 minutes. Actually, a little less than, so just hang out for a couple more minutes and we'll kind of chill. And then we're gonna call it a night here. And I'll see you guys in the morning once I do that. Why do they keep turning it up? Like, they're pissing me off. Come on, dude. Keep forgetting to move the radar. Dunkirk's about to get some pretty heavy snow now. There's something I actually want to look up here. I know lake effect rain might be a thing. I'm just not entirely sure if it is. Alright. Ooh, look at that big band that's popped up over here. It's directly over Rochester right now. So it's this camera right here on the bottom that's going to end up catching that. With it being as dark as it is right now, though, it's going to be kind of hard to see anything. Yeah. Looks like we got some pretty heavy snowfall going over there. Excuse the silence. I know that lake effect rain is a thing. I actually just couldn't resist it, and I had to refresh myself on that. It's basically the equivalent of lake effect snow, but it brings warm air up into the atmosphere instead of cold air. It seems like lake effect rain isn't quite as common as lake effect snow from what I've seen. It's definitely not made as much. It definitely isn't made as much mention of in comparison to lake effect snow. But I think the impacts are still pretty similar. But definitely something I'm gonna be researching off stream here when I get the chance. Yeah, it's gonna be just a little bit actually, because this point we're gonna be calling it a night here. Not really a whole lot to talk about in this one, obviously. As far as what's going on with this system, this is of course going to progress off to the east. There's still going to be some pretty significant totals, but most of this is going to be from lake effect, aka lake. I guess in this case you would say lake enhanced snow, because this is going to be assisted almost by an adjacent clipper system. So closer to the lakes, you're going to end up getting some greater snowfall totals. As you go further inland, totals kind of drop off. Towards the mountains, it's going to pick back up a bit. So totals, of course, will vary. This will be like a little small, weaker snowstorm, but one that's probably welcome for a lot of people in the Northeast, because they've been below average in regards to their snowfall for the season. That being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your night. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you tomorrow.